So today we are going to have a look at Book 12, Test 4, and this is exclusively for the academic students, right? So if you're doing General IELTS, then you don't need to do this test. But if you just want to anyway do it, that's fine, right? But you know what the difference is between the two components, right? I told you that at the very first video when I was introducing IELTS, as well as when we were doing the first lesson in the reading section. So before we begin to discuss the answers, as always, I would like you to download the paper and do the paper. So you have 40 questions and you have 1 hour to complete all 40 questions. So I'd like you to pause the video here and do the test. Right, so I think you would have finished the test by now. Let's have a look at the answers. So here you have the answers for all 40 questions. Reading passage 1, questions 1 to 13. Obsidian, spears, beads, impurities, Romans, lead, clouding, taxes, true, false, not given, true, false. Make sure that you check your spellings in these few words. Pay special attention to the spelling and make sure that you have the S at the end, like Romans, not just Roman, okay? If you have written Roman here, then you know that the answer is going to be wrong, okay? Then you have reading passage 2, 14 to 26, D, A, C, A, C, E, D, F, A, no, not given, yes, yes. You could just write the N down, it's fine, okay? And if it is not given, you could write NG, and if it is yes, you can write Y. But better you could write the full form, that's better. Then 27 to 40, 4, 2, 6, 8, 7, 1, 3, yes, not given, no, no, information, financial, you could have shareholders or investors. Either word is fine, okay? So you can put down your score out of 40, how much you have, and then you could put down your band score. How do you calculate your band score? I have taught that for you in the very first video, right? So you could have a look at that video in case you don't know your band score. Right, so let us have a look at reading passage 1. The history of glass. Early humans used a material called blank sharp points of their blank, okay? So early humans, they used some material called to make the sharp points of their something, right? So what we have to do is complete these two gaps. So if you go to the first para, the author mentioned that from our earliest origins, man has been making use of glass. Historians have discovered that a type of natural glass, obsidian, was the first used as tips for spears. So early humans used, what was the material called? It was called obsidian, right? From our earliest origins, it can be understood as early humans. make use of is that they use it. Tips means sharp point. So we say the tip of a pen. Tip means it's usually a sharp point, right? So it can be inferred from the two statements or the sentences that our ancestors used obsidian to make sharp points of their spears. So what did they use it for? Making spears, right? Therefore, the answer for question 1 is obsidian. So this one here. And question 2, it is this one here, spears, right? So those are the two answers. Question 3, 4000 BC, made of stone were covered in a coating of man-made glass, right? So in 4000 BC, right, it was made of stone and it was covered in a coating of man-made glass. Now, if you skim and scan well, use the techniques that I have taught you, if you remember, in our reading techniques, right? We can locate the word 4000 BC in the first para. Archaeologists have found evidence of man-made glass which date back to 4000 BC. This took the form of glazes used for coating stone beads, right? So 4000 BC blank, right, made of stone were covered in a coating of man-made glass. So what is our answer? It was used for coating stone of beads, right? So beads, that is going to be your answer. This refers to man-made glass. Coat means it's covered, okay? It's not like a coat that people wear like a winter coat. A coat means a covering, okay? So the sentence can be paraphrased into man-made glass was used to cover the stone beads. So the answer is beads. Note that only one word is allowed and therefore you can only take the word beads, okay? So here is your answer. Question number 4. 1st century BC, glass was colored because of the blank in the material. Okay, so what are our keywords? 1st century BC, glass was colored because why? Material. Okay, so 1st century BC is there in the second para. It goes on to talking about the glass made during this time was highly colored due to the impurities of the raw material, right? Why was it colored, right? Because of the impurities. What was the reason behind it? Impurities, right? Due to means because of, right? So the impurities in the material were responsible for the color of the glass. Therefore, the answer is going to be impurities. Question number 5. Until 476 AD, only the blank knew how to make glass. Okay? So, in the second para, it is mentioned that the Romans guarded the skills and the technology required to make glass very closely. So when we say guarded, right, it's that they protected that specific method of making glass, right? And it was not until 476 AD that glass making knowledge became widespread. So until that, what happened? The Romans didn't let that knowledge or skill go out, okay? So only who knew that specific type to make glass? Only the Romans knew it, right? So here is your answer. Now, when we come here down widespread, glass making knowledge means how to make glass. So this is kind of the paraphrasing part for you to understand how do we get the answer, right? Widespread means distributed over a wide region or occurring in many places or among many people or individuals, right? Which is the opposite term of only. So it can be inferred from this that prior to 476 AD, such knowledge has been exclusively known by only the Romans, right? And therefore, the answer is Romans. Question number 6 and 7. 17th century, George Ravenscroft developed a process using something to avoid the occurrence of blown glass. Okay. So the information about George Ravenscroft can be found in the third para where the author's name is mentioned, right? And it states an attempt to counter the effect of clouding occurred in blown glass by introducing lead to the raw materials used in the process, right? The words counter the effect of mean to reduce the effect of, which means it is the same as to avoid, right? So 17th century George developed a process using what? He used clouding, right, to avoid the occurrence of lead in blown glass. So information about George can be found in the third para, right, where the author mentioned an attempt to counter the effect of clouding that sometimes occurred in blown glass. So what happened in blown glass? There was this clouding effect, okay? By introducing lead to the raw materials used in the process. So what happened when lead was used in this specific process? An effect of clouding occurred, okay? The words counter the effect means reduce the effect of, which means it is the same as to avoid. The idea is to use a material called lead in the production of blown glass to avoid the clouding problem, right? So, they developed a process using lead to avoid the occurrence of clouding. And that's what you can see here, the two answers, right? Question number 8. Mid-19th century, British glass production developed after changes to laws concerning what? Right? So changes to laws. Right. So because the question follows the order of the text and we already know the position of the answer to question 7, right? That was in the third para if you can remember. Just pay attention to the following parts. So we find the word Britain and the date, which is 1845, which refers to mid-19th century. At the beginning of the fourth para, we find these pieces of information. It is mentioned that the Excise Act had put heavy taxes on the amount of glass melted in a glass house and were levied continuously from 1745 to 1845. But since its repeal, meaning that laws were cancelled, the modern glass industry, which is the same as British glass production, started to develop, right? So when we have a look at these words and the context, we can see that the answer should be taxes, because the changes to laws concerning the taxes, what was really the change in that specific time frame. So the answer should be taxes. Oops. So the answer should be taxes, right? Questions number 9 to 13. You should write the answers in the boxes on your answer sheet, right? Now, is it true, false, or not given? That is the question. In 1887, H.M. Ashley had the fastest bottle producing machine that existed at that time, okay? So, fastest bottle producing at that time. In terms of H.M. Ashley's machine, the fifth paragraph stated that it was more than 3 times quicker than any previous production method, okay? So it was better than any other method, means yes, it is the best at the moment, right? A bottle producing machine is a form of the production method. So this statement definitely shows that it is true, and therefore the answer is true. Okay. Question number 10. Michael Owens was hired by a large US company to design a fully automated bottle manufacturing machine for them, right? So he was hired by a large US company to design what? A fully automated bottle manufacturing machine, right? Now, a fully automated information about Michael Owen can be found in the 5th para again. It is mentioned that he was the founder. Okay? He was the founder of Owen's Bottle Machine Company. He started the company and he was the owner. Hence, the statement that he was hired by the company makes it false, right? He wasn't hired, it was his own company. You hire someone when they work for you, right? But when it's your own company, you're the owner. Because of that, the answer is false. Question 11. Nowadays, most glass is produced by large international manufacturers. Now, if you go to the 6th para, it says, nowadays is today, right? Glass making is a big business. It has become a modern high-tech industry operating in a fiercely competitive global market where quality, design and service levels are critical to maintaining market share. So yes, they say that glass making is a big business today, right? It's a high-tech industry. And companies operating in that market, they're very competitive, and design, quality, service matters a lot. But is it being done by large international companies? We don't know that. They don't mention anything about international companies. Because they don't mention anything about the international companies, I can't say exactly is it them or not. Therefore, the answer is not given. Question number 12. Concern for the environment is leading to an increased demand for glass containers, right? So, if you come to the last para, the author said, with growing consumer concern for green issues, glass bottles and jars are becoming even more popular, right? So here it says, because people are concerned about the environment, this has led to what? The number increasing in terms of glass containers. There's a demand for it. Well, this is exactly what it is telling here. Because the consumer wants to talk about the green issues, environmentally friendly policies, the demand for glass bottles and jars are becoming more and more, right? So when we say concern for green issues, it means about the environment, okay? When we say glass bottles and jars, it means different types of glass containers. So therefore, we can say that the increased concern about the environment has created an impact on the demand for glass containers, and that also has increased. So I would take the answer as true. Right? Question number 13. It is more expensive to produce recycled glass than to manufacture new glass. So what does it tell you? It's more expensive to produce recycled glass than actually to manufacture new glass, right? Now, if you go to the last para, the author made a comparison between the recycle and the new glass. So there is a comparison. Let us read that and see what is the comparison talking about. As less energy is needed to melt recycled glass than to melt down raw materials, this also saves fuel and production costs. Right. So in other words, when you have used glass, it's easier to melt that glass than the new one. So what happens? Because it is easier, it saves the fuel and the production cost. So actually, can it be expensive? No. If the fuel is less, if the production is less, what are they implying to us? They are saying that it is cheaper than actually getting new glass done, right? So it implies that the production of recycled glass is not as expensive as that of new glass because it requires less energy, fuel and production costs. Therefore, because it says more expensive, the answer is going to be false. Question number 14 to 18, and that is from passage 2. Bring back the big cats. Okay. So questions number 14 to 18. Write the correct letter. You must say A, B, C or D in your answer sheet. Right? What did the 2006 discovery of the animal bone reveal about Linux? Right? So 2006 discovery, animal bone reveal about Linux. So this is A, B, C and D. Right? So I go back to my question. So let's start from here. Right? The date 2006 can easily be found in the first para if you use your scanning techniques, right? Here the author claimed that 2006, right, together with 3 others in Yorkshire and Scotland is compelling evidence that the lynx and the mysterious Llewellyn were in fact one and the same animal. Okay, right. So, if this is so, it would bring forward the tassel-eared cat's estimated extinction date by roughly 5,000 years. Right, so I go back and read my answers now. Its physical appearance was distinctive. Its extinction was linked to the spread of farming. It vanished from Britain several thousand years ago. It survived in Britain longer than previously thought. So, your answer is very clearly there. They say that these two, the lynx, had compelling evidence that the lynx and the loon were in fact the same animal. And if that's the case, right, it will bring forward the tassel-eared cat's estimated extinction date by nearly 5,000 years forward. So, does it talk about the physical appearance was very distinctive? No. Distinctive means they're very different. Distinctive, special, you can see the features, right? No, it doesn't talk about that. They say it's the same. Spread never spoke about farming, okay? It didn't say it vanished, never spoke about it, but it does say it, what? Survived in Britain longer than it was previously thought. Yes, it would probably come about 5,000 years forward. So, seems like an okay answer. The word find is the same as discovery. Bring forward means to move to an earlier time or date. It can be understood that after this discovery, scientists had enough proof to say that the extinction of lynx had happened much later than previously thought. So, the answer is D. Question number 50. What point does the writer make about large predators in the third para? Okay, so point large predators, third para. Now let's go and read where we find the answer. Now usually what I do is I read the question, go and find the answer, and then come and evaluate all the multiple options given to me, right? That is the best way, but you could think about what best fits you. So we can find the information about large predators in the third para, and the question also tells you that it is in the third para. Some of them drive dynamic processes that resonate through the whole food chain, creating niches for hundreds of species that might otherwise struggle to survive, right? So, we come back here. Their presence can increase biodiversity, seems okay. They may cause damage to local ecosystem, not really. Can alter according to the environment, didn't talk about it. They should be reintroduced only to areas where they were native, not really, okay? So, the first half of the sentence, from here. The whole food chain refers to the ecosystems, and resonate means to broadly affect something. So, the first half of the sentence means that the presence of large predators can extensively affect the ecosystems in which they live. In addition, it helps to create niche, meaning appropriate environment for other animals, including those considered to be in the prey. Hence, more species are likely to survive, which means biodiversity increases. The author summarizes this with a final sentence. The killers turn out to be bringers of life. Okay. So, their presence can increase biodiversity, yes. The most appropriate answer is A. It doesn't damage it, and it doesn't talk about, alter according to the environment, or D. So, the most appropriate answer is A. What does the writer suggest about British conservation in the fourth para? It's a suggestion about the British conservation, right? Right. So let's go and see, and it's in the fourth para. So if we come to the fourth para, the author mentioned that British conservation tried to preserve the living world as if it were a jar of pickles, letting nothing in and nothing out, keeping nature in a state of arrested development. So, it can be understood that they wanted to keep everything in a static state without changing it, without developing it, failing to understand that ecosystems are not merely collections of species, right? They are also dynamic and they have ever-shifting relationships between them. Ever-shifting means it keeps on continuously changing and developing. So the idea of always keeping everything same is not really possible or plausible. In other words, British conservation has taken a misguided approach, right? Because you can't really keep things unchanged. It needs to change on its own. So if we have a look at the answers, it has failed to achieve aims. It doesn't really talk about this, so I would say no. It is beginning to change direction, not really, didn't speak about it. It has taken a misguided approach, definitely yes. It has focused on the most widespread species, never spoke about that. So the most appropriate answer is going to be C. 17. Protecting large areas of the sea from commercial fishing would result in, right? So when we protect large areas of the sea from commercial fishing, what would happen? Now, if you go to the fifth para, right, the author mentioned, right, so in the fifth para, the author mentioned at sea, the potential is even greater. By protecting large areas from commercial fishing, we could once more see what 18th century literature describes. Vast shoals of fish being chased by fin and sperm whales within sight of the English shore, anticipating the return of once flourished marine life if sea protection is done right, by creating breeding reserves, right? However, protecting large areas of the sea not only benefits the ecosystem, it also benefits the fishing industry, whose overexploitation of the seabed could not be more damaging to its own interests, right? So what happens? Commercial fishing leaves no fish offspring in the sea, meaning no fish to catch in the near future. An alternative would be to protect marine life and to turn catchers in the surrounding seas, right? Let's have a look at the answers. A. Practical benefits of fishing industry. So when you protect large areas of the sea from the commercial fishing, right, definitely it would mean that yes, there's a practical benefit in terms of the fishing industry. Some short-term losses? No. In the long run, there would be no fish. That's what it tells us. Widespread opposition doesn't talk about anything like that. Certain changes to techniques within the fishing industry doesn't really talk about that. So the most appropriate answer would be A. Okay? According to the author, what distinguishes rewilding from the other environmental campaigns? According to the author, what distinguishes rewilding from other environmental campaigns? Right? So, let's have a look at what it tells. In the 6th para, it states that rewilding is a rare example of an environmental move. Okay, meaning it is different from other campaigns because it helps to create a more inspiring vision. Inspiring means definitely appealing. Vision can be understood as a very positive image that you put across to your target audience. So by arguing in favor of a rewilding, campaigners articulate what they are for rather than only what they are against, right? So their message is therefore a positive one, right? Let's have a look at it. Its objective is more achievable. Not really, I think, a question there. Its supporters are more articulate. Not really. Its positive message is more appealing. Yes, could be. It is based on sounder scientific principles. Never spoke about that. The most appropriate answer could be C. Right? Questions 19 to 22. Complete the summary using the list of the words. So you have the list of the words with you, right? And I'm sure you have the paper with you. Now for every video, I've told you to have either the hard copy with you or you need to have the soft copy on one side and my video on the other side, right? So, in the 7th para, it is stated that the lynx presents no threat to human beings. There is no known instance of one preying on people. No known instance means there is no evidence, and prey on means it's fed on, right? You feed them on that something, which is similar to put something in danger. So the sentence could be paraphrased into, there is no evidence that the lynx has put people in danger, right? Therefore, the answer should be humans and that answer should be E. Okay? 20. So your keyword should be reduce the number. Populations increased enormously in recent decades. So, when you go to the 7th para, the lynx is described as a specialist predator of roe deer, a species that has exploded in Britain in recent decades. So explode means it has increased enormously in the population. A predator is an organism that exists by preying upon other organisms. So they kind of survive by eating some other animal. The fact that a lynx is a predator of the roe deer means that it feeds on that specific animal. Therefore, reduces the number of the latter, and the roe deer are a type of wild animal, right? So, therefore, they feed on these roe deers, which is kind of a wild animal, and the answer should be D. 21. Keywords are minimal threat, provided lynx habitats. In the next part of the 7th para, it stated that the lynx requires deep cover, right? Requires deep cover. And as such presents little risk to sheep and other livestock, which are supposed as a condition of farm subsidies to be kept out of the woods. The term little risk means there is only a minimal threat, as the condition means provided, kept out of, in the same way as kept away from the woods. Okay? So we can paraphrase this sentence and say, the lynx only poses to a minimal threat of livestock, provided that they are kept away from the lynx habitats. So, livestock here, sheep and other livestock mean more farm animals. So, therefore, the answer is F, right? 22. What are the keywords? Link efficiently, initiatives and return. In the 7th para, it is mentioned that the reintroduction of the links marries well, meaning that it links efficiently. Marries means you kind of link together, right? With the aim of bringing forests back to parts of bare and barren uplands, which implies certain areas of the country. Since bring something back means to return, and initiative can be understood as aim. So the answer should be trees, right? And therefore, the answer should be A, right? Because you bringing forests back. So forest means you have a lot of trees. So that's what you should bring back. Return is to bring back. Questions 23 to 26. Do the following statements agree with the claims of the writer in reading passage 2, right? So you have to say yes, no, or not given. Britain could become the first European country to reintroduce the lynx. In the 8th paragraph, the author told us that he heard several conservationists suggest that the lynx could be reintroduced there within 20 years, right? So Britain could become the first European country to reintroduce the lynx. Let's go on reading, right? Meaning that the reintroduction of the lynx in Britain has not happened yet. In addition, it also stated that the lynx has now been reintroduced to the Jura Mountains, the Alps and the Vosges in eastern France, right, and in Germany. So therefore, Britain cannot be the first European country because it's obviously been introduced in other parts of Europe, which is France and Germany. Therefore, the answer is going to be no. Question number 24. The large growth in the European lynx population since 1970 has exceeded conservationists' expectations. It is mentioned in the 8th para, the European population has tripled since 1970, indicating yes, there is a large growth. But has it gone beyond their expectations? That we don't know. Because we don't know, it is not given. Question number 25. Changes in agricultural practices have extended the habitat of the lynx in Europe, right? So, in the next part of the 8th para, there's information about the lynx habitats. The lynx has been able to spread as farming has left the hills. The word farming refers to agriculture practices. So, farming has left the hills means it is considered to change in agricultural practices. So, this suggests that the land previously used for farming is now available for the lynx to inhabit, spreading their territory. The word spread has the meaning as extend the habitat. Therefore, we can say that the changes in agriculture, it has allowed the lynx to extend their habitat, and therefore the answer is yes. It does agree with the passage. Question number 26. It has become apparent that species reintroduction has commercial advantages. Now, the information about increasing size of lynx habitats is there in the 8th para, and it states, people discover that it is more lucrative. Lucrative means it's very attractive. There's a commercial value for it, okay, to protect charismatic wildlife than to hunt it, as tourists will pay for the chance to see it. Both lucrative and commercial advantages mean money making. So the sentence suggests, right, it is apparent that species reintroduction has commercial advantages, which means it suggests that lynx could become a tourist attraction, bringing in money to the areas where they live. In other words, it has commercial benefits. So the answer is yes. Passage 3. UK companies need more effective boards of directors. Questions number 27 to 33, reading passage 3, and that has 7 paragraphs A to G. Right? So, you have to match against the appropriate heading. Question number 27, para A. This paragraph mentions the 2008 financial meltdown, the aftermath of which is the search for responsible businesses. Government regulators, central banks, and auditors have all been in the frame. The role of bank directors and management and their widely publicized failures have been extensively picked over and examined in reports, inquiries, and commentaries. So in this sentence, failures is the same as problems. Governments, regulators, central banks, and auditors are examples of external bodies. And this is related to the 2008 crisis. Therefore, the correct heading is number 4, many external bodies being held responsible for the problems. Right? So, answer 4. Question number 28, paragraph B. The first sentence shows the main content of this para, okay, so which is the topic sentence tells us what the paragraph is going to be about. The knock-on effect of this scrutiny has been to make the government of companies in general an issue of intense public debate and has significantly increased the pressure on and the responsibilities of directors, right? So scrutiny means close examination and effect means the impact. So this paragraph is about the impacts of close examination on companies. Therefore, the impact on companies being subject to close examination, that is number 2. 29, paragraph C. So paragraph C is quite short, so you can read it thoroughly to find the answer. The author mentioned that board business is devolved to committees in order to cope with the workload, which may be more efficient but can mean that the board as a whole is less involved in fully addressing some of the most important issues. Right? So this suggests that the disadvantage of board business is the potential risk of board members not being able to work collectively to get through the issues. The term board refers to directors. To be involved in means to take part in. To address important issues means to solve major problems. Therefore, we can paraphrase as follows that the directors may not fully take part in solving major problems, and therefore the answer is going to be 6. Question number 30, paragraph D. In that it discusses a radical solution called the professional board. Although there are certain drawbacks to this solution and it may not be suitable for all businesses, the author claimed that more professional and better informed boards would have been particularly appropriate for banks where the executives had access to information that part-time non-executive directors lacked, leaving the latter unable to comprehend or anticipate the 2008 crash. So therefore, such a solution is a proposal about the necessary changes to deal with problems in board operation, right? So therefore, the most appropriate answer would be 8. Right? Reading and understanding the paragraph is really important. Para E. Okay. We find information about the heading of this paragraph in the first sentence. One of the main criticisms of the board and their directors is that they do not focus sufficiently on longer-term matters of strategy, sustainability and governance, but instead concentrate too much on short-term financial metrics. So this means the board doesn't really understand the bigger picture. They don't understand the importance of long-term plans and development, right? Therefore, boards are not looking far enough ahead. So that is definitely the answer 7. So the next question number 32, paragraph F, right? So if you read the first sentence where we usually get the idea, compensation for chief executives has become a combat zone where pitched battles between investors, management and board members are fought, right? We know that there are often disagreements concerning compensation between the investors and board directors of a company. The term compensation means payment or remuneration. So it has to do with money, right? Heading 1, disputes over financial arrangements regarding senior managers is most suitable. So dispute means disagreement, right? However, to be sure, we need to look a bit further. So therefore, we go in this paragraph a bit further. There is no information regarding changes made to the company. So heading 3, the possible need for fundamental changes in every area of business is barely not relevant. And therefore, heading 5, the falling number of board members with broad enough experience is not the answer either, because chief executives is there in the para, but there is no reference to the number reduction. So therefore, the most appropriate answer is going to be 1. Paragraph G, question number 33. So, the correct heading for this para can come up with the following sentence. Boards of companies in all sectors will need to widen their perspective to encompass these issues, and this may involve a realignment of corporate goals. The term in all sectors means in every area. And it is clear that there are fundamental questions asked about the morality of capitalism and the market economy. So therefore, the possible need for fundamental changes seems to be the most appropriate answer. That is going to be number 3. Questions number 34 to 37. Do the following statements agree with the claims of the writer in reading passage 3? So you need to tell us, is it true or false or not given? Yes, no, or not given. Does it agree? No, or it's not given. Close scrutiny of the behavior of boards has increased since the economic downturn. Okay. So we can find information about the economic downturn in para A. It says, following the 2008 financial meltdown, that is a downturn, which resulted in a deeper and more prolonged period for the economic downturn than anyone expected. The search for explanations in many postmortems of the crisis has meant blame has been spread far and wide, and the role of bank directors, management, and their widely publicized failures have been extensively picked over, examined, right, in reports, inquiries, and commentaries. So yes, it has increased, and they looked at all the possible options. So yes. 35. Banks have mismanaged to a greater extent than other businesses. We have to take banks as well, right? Mismanagement refers to the failures of governments, regulators, central banks, and auditors. So these businesses are said to have all been in the frame, right? However, we cannot find out about the information whether they contributed the most towards this. So, greater extent. It does say that it did have some kind of, contribution, but was it more than the others? We don't know. Therefore, the answer is not given. Question number 36. Board meetings normally continue for as long as necessary to debate matters in full. Now, if you go to the last para, now this bit should come here in full, right? It's a keyword. The last sentence of para B talks about agendas can become overloaded, and this can mean the time of constructive debate must necessarily be restricted in favor of getting through the business, right? The fact that companies have a lot of other work to do means that they cannot afford long and thorough discussion. As a result, the time is restricted. So therefore, they don't give enough time, right? The time for constructive debate, it refers to in full. Thorough means in detail. So definitely they don't give time to discuss these matters in full because of the restricted time frame. So answer is no. Question 37. Using a committee structure would ensure that board members are fully informed about significant issues, right? So using a committee structure would ensure that board members are fully informed about significant issues, right? Now, if you go to para C, the author mentioned that board business is devolved to committees in order to cope with the workload, which may be more efficient but can mean that the board as a whole is less involved in fully addressing some of the most important issues. The word important is the same as significant. The fact that the committee members are less involved in fully addressing, right, means that it can be seen that their inability to understand the problems of the organization in detail, right? So, if we come here, using committee structure would ensure that board members are fully informed about significant issues? Not really, right? It is not uncommon for the audit committee meeting to last longer than the main board itself. Can imply that they are not fully informed about it. So, definitely, answer would be no. Questions number 38 to 40. Complete the sentences below. Choose one word from the passage. Before 2008, non-executive directors were at a disadvantage because of their lack of what? Okay. In the last sentence of para D, the author says, executives had access to information that part-time non-executive directors lacked. Lacked means they didn't have. It was a disadvantage. What didn't they have? They didn't have information. Right? Boards tend to place too much emphasis on something, considerations that only for short-term relevance, right? Go to para E. Short-term is there in para E. They do not focus sufficiently on longer-term matters of strategy, sustainability, but instead concentrate too much on short-term financial metrics. Concentrate means they pay attention to. Financial matrix means financial matters, right? So what do they emphasize on? Financial considerations. So answer is financial. Coming to the last question, question number 40. On certain matters such as pay, the board may have to accept the views of who? So we already know question 32, there are often conflicts between investors and boards, right? Concerning the matter of compensation or pay. In para F, it is also stated that shareholders use their muscle in the area of pay to pressure the boards to remove underperforming chief executive directors, right? Or chief executives. So who gives this pressure, right? The board of, who gives this pressure? The shareholders, right? The passage also continues, their powers to vote down executive remuneration policies increased when binding votes came into force, right? So definitely, whose views are being accepted? The shareholders' views are being accepted, okay? So the most appropriate answer would be shareholders. So with that, I think you've got a good understanding. We've reviewed all the questions, all 40 questions, and why these are the answers and where can you find the exact answer, right? So with that, we come to the end of the discussion where we discussed Cambridge Book 12, Test 4 for academic students.